Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, the place for internet technology professionals whose work-life balance plan has imploded. We are here to provide solutions that will help the IT pro live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, this is Joanne Victoria, and welcome to another episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Our guest today is Tessa Stowe. That's Tessa, Tessa Stowe, Stowe. Tessa is the founder of Saying Yes to Happiness and helps people fast-track happiness, especially after a significant event sucks it out of them. Tessa does this by teaching proven happiness recipes, which are quick, easy, fun, effective, and can fit into your day no matter how busy, stressed, or overwhelmed you are. These recipes are the missing piece to the finding the happiness puzzle. Her happiness expertise comes from two main areas: real life and extracting the gems from mountains of information and research by happiness and behavior scientists and scholars. You can reach Tessa by emailing her at tessa@sayingyes-to-happiness.com, and her website address is sayingyes-to-happiness.com, and it'll also be on her website page, on my website, askjoannevictoria.com, and many other places. So I'm going to welcome Tessa Stowe to the show by asking her her definition of what is happiness. Welcome to the show, Tessa Stowe.
Oh, well, thank you, Joanne. It's so lovely to be here with you and your listeners, especially since we're connected across oceans. You're in the US and I'm over here in Australia. It's amazing. So, technology. So, yes, how do you define, what is happiness? Because, it's important to define it and get clear about what it is. Otherwise, how do we know what we're aiming for? So, and the other thing is, unless you've got a clear definition yourself of what happiness is, you can be misled about what it is and how to go about achieving it. So, get clear. So for me, happiness has got two components, and you really do need both. So the first component is basically feeling good in the moment. So feeling joyful, feeling appreciation, feeling love, feeling excitement, connected, feeling kind. It's a feeling. So in the moment, but it's also having a feeling that your life is meaningful and that you're making an impact and that your life's worth living. So on my side, I nailed fairly quickly after what had happened in my life. I nailed fairly quickly the feeling good in the moment, because there's things you can do. So I worked that out with those, basically using those happiness recipes you talked about, Joanne. And but I remember because I'd lost my husband died five years ago, which kind of set me off on this journey of how do I get my happiness back eventually. So, but I realized that even though I was worked out how to be happy in the moment, some event would come along and just knock me off my perch, and I would actually end up back in bed because I was really, just grief does that to you. And I remember lying in bed thinking, this is really strange because I'm supposed to be the happy person. So why, what's going on here? And I realized that, I didn't have a reason for getting out of bed. I just thought, well, what's my meaning? Because my husband had died, and he was my life, he was my why. And that's when I realized that, it's all very well having happiness in the moment, but, you really need a reason, a meaning. Your life needs to have meaning. And it doesn't need to be, I'm going to go out there and change the world and that. It could just be something simple like, when I say simple, but it's powerful, like, raising your children or connecting with your neighbor or just being kind to people. But it's just something, and so I was just kind of basically sort of thinking, well, what's my purpose? And I thought, I've just got to work this out. And I came up with really that my meaning is really sharing my story and inspiring others, particularly if they've been, knocked off their happiness perch, with some sort of significant event. And that gets me out of bed in the mornings because I write about it. I talk about it. I help people, and Joanne, I've actually got a double purpose for it because I really want to help and inspire people to be happy. In fact, learn the skill of happiness. It is actually a skill. You can learn it, which is another story in itself. But I'm also really passionate about funding water wells in Africa. So my husband, for the cause in South Africa, was in the army, and he basically, destroyed lots of water wells, and he carried an incredible guilt around with him for that. And he wanted to actually, go back to Africa and build these water wells, but he died before he could actually make his dream come true. And in fact, he was just so ashamed of it. But basically, I want to fund water wells in Africa, and what I'm doing is very much helping people, inspiring people to be happy, but at the same time, bringing happiness to these villages in Africa. That's very personal to me. So in summary, then, happiness is really feeling good in the moment with those feelings, but having a meaning or a reason to get out of bed. And please don't want people to stress out that it's got to be something really, really, significant and way out there and changing the world. It's not. It's just something that gets you out of bed. Like for my mother, for example, her whole purpose in life was raising my brother and I. That was why she got out of bed every day. And for that, I am eternally grateful. So
yeah, I was going to say that people diminish raising a family
yes.
as being, it's just what you do, quote unquote. Well, it's more than that. I mean, especially if you've had someone who devoted themselves to you, such as your mother, who devoted herself to both you and your brother to the point where she helped form you.
Yes, totally.
And people don't get that that's what happens, because people today who are raising their children, and I don't care if they work or not, because work is the excuse, not the reason. And they say, but the children that are of today have no foundation, have very few values. They don't think of others. They only think of themselves, which means that they were not brought up certainly as well as you were. And it's really important. But you're right when saying you need a reason to get out of bed.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, I'm going to save the world. It doesn't have to even be as much as yours is, one of yours is anyway, that I'm going to, recreate the wells in South Africa, water wells, or provide water, because that's a big one. It just has to be a thing.
Yes.
If it's raising your children, if it's providing them with all of the resources necessary that they grow, because that is our responsibility as a parent, is that I just learned recently in very specific language. The children don't lead us, we lead the children. And we are responsible for them. So we are responsible for everything we think and do.
Yep.
And
totally.
We need to be responsible for getting out of bed.
Yes. And we need to be actually. The other thing too, Joanne, is we actually need to be responsible for our own happiness, because it's funny because happiness is, as I mentioned, it's actually a skill, and you can learn it and get better and better at it. And the better you get at it, the happier you get. So, but the thing is, we're not taught happiness as a skill. We just kind of we just sort of go along with the flow and just sort of see. Hopefully, if we just go with the flow, we'll end up happy. And it's just, I find it totally bizarre, because happiness is so important for so many reasons, and yet we're not, we're taught all sorts of subjects in school which we'll never use, and are completely meaningless and frankly useless, some of them. But we're not taught one of the most important skills there is, and that is the skill of happiness.
So when you say it can be learned, what is the first step in learning how to be happy?
Right. So first of all, and that's a very, very powerful, it's a very powerful question. And before I answer it, Joanne, I'd just like to say that one of the reasons that like in the introduction, you said I'm particularly focused on, what my message is especially relevant for people who've had a significant event suck the happiness out of them.
Yes.
And the reason for that is because when you've had a significant event in your life, it just changes your perspective, doesn't it? Like it really, you just see everything differently. Light bulb moments come on. And also you start to ask questions. When I lost my husband, for example, I was just negative on the happiness scale for quite a while. I thought it would be disloyal to be happy ever again. But eventually I got to the stage of saying, gosh, okay, I want to be happy again, but how? So really, the reason I'm talking about this is unless you're actually asking the question about how can I be happy, what do I actually do, then you're not going to get the answer. And I think so. Actually asking the question is a huge step in the right direction. But the first thing is if you want to become happier or happy, because we can always become happier as well,
sure,
is to make a commitment. So to ask yourself, am I committed to being happy? And it's a big question. And people would say, oh gosh, but isn't everybody committed to being happy? Well, no, because as I mentioned in myself, after my husband died, if you'd asked me, are you committed to being happy? I would have said, absolutely not. So not everybody's committed to being happy. So it's like okay, if you can answer that question, yes, I am committed to being happy, then the next thing is to basically be intentional about doing the things that are proven to make you happy. So in other words, have your choices, your actions, your feelings all be in alignment with being happy, and you just keep doing those things. But right there is the issue, because it's all very well me saying, do the things that are proven to make you happy, but what are those things that are proven to make you happy? And I can assure you, Joanne, that it's not what they tell you in ads, okay? Buy my stuff and you'll be happy, okay? Because they're simply trying to sell you stuff. So it's like that really isn't the formula. So you really want to know what really works. So first of all, it's what really works. But then even if you know what really works, the thing is, well, okay, I know this works, but how do I actually get myself to do it consistently? So there's two big questions there. So I've done a lot of research. I've been fortunate to connect with lots of happiness scientists and scholars. I also connected with the world's leading behavior scientists. I was coming out of my own fog, so to speak, and met BJ Fogg. He's the world's leading behavior scientist, and he's got a fantastic method for creating habits, getting yourself to do things, and it's really quick and easy and fast and doesn't require motivation. Perfect for me when I had no energy and motivation. So so I've basically, what I've done is I've taken what the scholars say that's proven to make you happy, and I've combined it with BJ Fogg's recipe and combined the two and made come up with happiness recipes. And I call these the missing piece in the happiness puzzle, because I'm not all about just saying, oh, you need to do this and you need to do that and you need to do this and do that and you'll be happy, because yeah, right, okay, it's like I'm into the doing bit. It's like I want actually to do it, people to do it, because I really want to make a difference and have people be a lot happier and know how to do it and be in control of their own happiness. So I'll give you if you like, Joanne, I can just give a quick crash course in creating happiness recipes.
Oh, that would be perfect.
Great. So what you do is you select a behavior that is proven scientifically to make you happy, right? And there are a list of, proven behaviors. And then you simply come up with an action that you could take that would be in alignment with that behavior. And then you come up with a tiny version of that action that you can take in 30 seconds or less. And then you decide on a prompt to get you to do that action. Now, I know I've said a lot there, but basically the recipe is, or happiness recipe is, after and you have a prompt, I will do a tiny action. So, and then when you do the tiny action, you celebrate so you feel good. And you celebrate by going, awesome, or you do a happy dance, or thumbs up, or fist in the air, high five, whatever takes your fancy. But doing the tiny action and then feeling good is critical.
Because you're changing the grooves in your brain while you're doing that.
Yes, and it's actually between you and me and the lamppost, Joanne, that's exactly what Facebook's doing. So they're giving you that little hit of awesome and great and feeling good, so you just keep doing it. So there's a lot of science here. So I've covered that quite quickly, so I'm going to give you an example because that makes it so much easier.
Yes, please.
So if we look at being present, or being mindful, if it's proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that if you're present and you're mindful, that will make you increase your happiness. It will make you happy. So that's the behavior. So an action that would be in alignment with being present could be, this is an example, it could be being conscious when you're eating. In other words, consciously stare and look at your food, right? So and a very tiny version of that action, because it's all about being tiny, could be staring at your food for 30 seconds or less. So what you need to do with it, remember that recipe, it's like you have a prompt and then you do it. So a prompt to get you to stare at your food could be picking up your fork, for example. So the recipe would be, after I pick up my fork, I will stare at my food for 30 seconds or less. And then you do that. And as soon as you've done that, that's when you do the celebration. Like high five, fist pump, happy dance. If you're with somebody and you do that, they'll probably think you're a bit weird. But you could just do it, just internally. If you're with somebody and you are picking up your fork and staring at your food for 30 seconds, just internally just say, "Oh, you're awesome," etc. So, because what happens why I say it's so important to celebrate is because you set off a dopamine effect, and you're kind of tricking yourself because you'll actually, even though you've only committed to do it for 30 seconds, you'll actually, because you've sort of tricked yourself with that saying you're awesome, you'll probably just keep staring at your food for a lot longer. And it's amazing how much tastier your food is and everything when you're actually really present and enjoying it. And the other thing is too, at the next time you eat, just keep repeating it, and you'll find very, very quickly that this will just become automatic. You won't even have to think about it. You'll just be sitting down, picking up your fork and staring at your food and really appreciating it. It will become a habit. And the thing is, what's so fantastic here is, as a side effect, that happiness feeling will flow out into the rest of your day. It's you get a big bang for your time with these happiness recipes. So a lot of people, a lot of people just kind of, would kind of go, well, this is all a bit too tiny. I'm only doing a really tiny action, and it seems so simple. And people would. I'm just saying, please don't dismiss the power here, because these recipes, or this formula, which is basically developed, as I mentioned, by BJ Fogg, it's so powerful, and it really, really works for changing your behavior and getting you to do habits. And the reason it works so is so effective is because it overcomes your resistance to starting, and it kicks in natural momentum. Because, I didn't ask you to do take time out of your day and sit down and do 10 minutes of meditation or 10 minutes of being present, because that's just like, people would have a resistance to doing that, but they'd start saying, oh, I'm too busy, I'll get around to it, or they might do it once or twice, but then 10 minutes is a long time, so they're not going to, it's not going to become a habit, really. Whereas if you just commit to 30 seconds or less doing something,
and your brain does not know it's 30 seconds.
Yes, and it just, you'll find yourself actually doing it for a lot longer, but there'll be no effort involved. So this whole thing is brilliant because it just overcomes your resistance to starting. Because if I just say, pick up your fork, after you've picked up your fork, stare at your food for 30 seconds, you're not going to argue with me that you haven't got time.
Right. So you're eliminating as much resistance as possible.
Precisely. So there's no resistance. You can use this. There's all different.
And where can people find? Is this on your website? Is the recipe on your website?
Right. So the best thing I suggest that they do, Joanne, is on Facebook. I have a Facebook group called Yes to Happiness. So they could join the Facebook group, and in the group every single day, just about every single day, we have a tiny little activity which is designed to take 30 seconds or less. So they're in alignment with these happiness recipes. So I would recommend joining that. I would also recommend people download my happiness roadmap, because then they'll get on my email list, and I'm going to be running a Fast Track Your Happiness workshop and talk about in more detail these recipes. I'm running that in March. It starts in March. So if people go to sayingyestohappiness.com/roadmap, they can get the roadmap, and then they'll get notified.
I'll make a note when I do the show notes to point this out, that's where they can go to get that roadmap.
Great, because it's all about, because those recipes are so amazing, because as I said, they overcome your resistance, because there is no resistance. But the thing that's so effective is that they kick in natural momentum, because even though it's only 30 seconds, it just, it's like a domino effect, and or ripple effect, it spreads out. And Joanne, that's actually how, it's the same methodology really, if you look at it, about how Facebook grew, because when they started off years ago, they didn't ask people to go on Facebook for an hour or 2 hours a day. They just asked them to go on for a quick, less than 30 seconds, and look how that time has expanded. So powerful, really powerful this. It's just, please, everyone who's listening, do not underestimate the power of doing tiny, tiny actions like this. They've got to obviously be the right actions, because you want to make sure that you're developing the happiness, the right happiness habits, the ones that are really going to lead to happiness.
And people also have to understand that one of the things that I subscribe to is consistency over time. That's what makes anything work better. You have to be consistent.
Precisely. Yes.
You can't do it once a month.
No, and because this is only these happiness recipes are all about doing things for these actions are all 30 seconds or less. That's all the commitment is. Like, you do it for 30 seconds or less, and then you celebrate, and then you can go on and do it for longer if you want to, but the key activity is 30 seconds or less. And you're just, it's sort of counterintuitive, but it's so important, because it's overcoming that resistance, and you're actually kicking in natural momentum.
Well, it makes sense to me, because you get the endorphins, you get everything in a very brief period of time, and it works. And that's all that really matters. So if you would give our listeners we have the 30 seconds or less, we have the, let's see, the behavior, the action, the prompt, and the celebration.
Yep.
If somebody would do something right now,
Yep.
right now, they're listening to this or this podcast, what could they do right now?
The one that I love, right, is when I wake up in the morning, okay, after my feet have touched the floor, I say, I intend to be happy today, yay. And I say that in the mornings. And that, Joanne, is amazing because it just sets my mind up. It's just powerful. So, yep, wake up, put your feet on the ground. After I put my feet on the ground, say, yes, I intend to be happy today.
Okay, people, there you go. Go to Tessa Stowe's website. It's saying yes-to-happiness.com. Find her roadmap and sign up for whatever she's offering you. And then also go to Facebook and join her group that is Yes to Happiness. And you will find all sorts of recipes on how to be happy. It's and then I think the next time we talk to Tessa, she'll probably have a book for you as well. So I'm just saying that as being an instigator, but, Tessa's going to have a book on happiness. Yay.
Yeah. Fabulous. Yes.
Thank you for being here today, Tessa Stowe. This has been very informative, and I think it's going to help the listeners, definitely. Okay,
Fabulous.
Everybody. Bye-bye. Have a great day, and thank you for listening to the Sanity Project podcast. Take care.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com and continue the conversation on my podcast page. And get a free copy of my book, The True Self Handbook, a guide to transform your life. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.